All right, so it's Thursday, February 17, 2022. Good morning, I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program. This is AM Prime on this Thursday morning. We'll tell you what's coming down the pike. Of course, we have the numbers, the COVID-19 numbers, the positive cases, the totally recovered patients, and the total active cases as we stand, the number of persons who've died from the vaccine since it's become in our midst. Also, the Newsday poll, we'll tell you what that is and the responses when we get there. And we're talking this morning also with somebody who's known as the ex-tempo champ in the UK. His name is Dave P3ot Maiku. Carnival 2022. What is it? What it is? We're seeing some fallout from events planned and had to be called off, and he's a Calypsonian. He's talking with us about his own experience with that. We'll also take a look at around the region. We'll touch in Jamaica and probably Barbados to some extent. Then we're talking with a retired head of the public service, His Eminence Reginald Dumas, on this question about the Prime Minister's statement. It was described in one newspaper headline as the Prime Minister's headache, but what to do with the senior ranks in the public service. He says that in a lot of cases, permanent secretaries, the people who rise to the top of the public service in various ministries, they're not trained in management, they're not trained in leadership. They get there because of experience and because of their longevity in the job, and he wants to change that. He said he's trying to do that. He had these ideas from some time out, hire people from the public service. Well, we talk with Mr. Dumas about that, who tends to have a position sort of consistent with the Prime Minister. He said he's been talking about for some time now, but we also want to share with you what's in one of the Newsday papers today with the head of the public service, and now Leroy Batiste saying to the government, leave the public service alone. So that's sort of what's coming down on the program this morning. But we're going to begin with a discussion with our friend Mr. Rudranath Indar Singh. He's a member of Parliament for Vancouver South. It had to do with a protest a couple of days ago by people who were workers of Carney 1975 Limited, and when they were released, because the company was folded up, they were promised at least 2 acres of land to do what they wanted with. And almost 20 years later, that has not happened. Also, this island-wide shutdown we had yesterday from Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission, what may have been behind that? What are some people's responses to that? Or the cause of it has not yet been sort of spelt out. So Mr. Indar Singh will help us understand. Well, I just get a perspective from him on all of that this morning. He's on the phone with us now. Good morning.
Pleasant good morning to you, Andy, and of course your viewing and listening audience.
All right. Thank you very much for filling the breach here this morning, because we were supposed to be talking with Mr. Steve Ramke soon, but he said because of the situation yesterday, he didn't get his stuff together. He wanted to consult with other people to get a broad-based view on the situation with the demonstration, with those people on that issue, and you've agreed to step in the breach for us, and we thank you for that. Let's start by saying that. But so give us a sense of your own understanding of this, because in your constituency, you'd have a lot of the people who would have been affected positively by that, this grant of 2 acres of land as part of the compensation for the shutdown of the company. Give us your own experience with it, maybe talking with some of your constituents who've been in that situation, clamoring for that promise to be made good.
Well, not only in the constituency of Vancouver South, but there are a number of constituencies where ex-Carney workers reside, and this government, in spite of we must never forget the Prime Minister in the general elections campaign came to Vancouver and also to Central Trinidad and indicated that if the PNM is given a chance, that they will follow through and ensure that sugar workers or ex-sugar workers get or continue the land distribution that was pursued by the partnership government under Kamla Prasad Bisesa as Prime Minister, which was a work in progress when we demitted office. From a historical point of view, Andy, I do not know if you can recollect that when Carney was closed, all the workers was going to be offered was financial entitlement based on the existing collective agreement at that point in time.
Yeah.
The union went to the industrial court and got an injunction which prevented really the government. We must never forget the government had usurped this entire process where the then Minister of Agriculture, John Rahal, had assumed the role of what we would call like the human resource manager of Caroni, where he held public meetings where I could remember one at Burking Castle, the Sevilla Club, one at Caroni Research Station in Waterloo, one at Woodford Lodge Field Engineering Department, and he virtually threatened workers and told them if they had not accepted the company's offer, which went out in individual letters and did not engage the All Trinidad Union as the recognized majority union, and that they would lose their jobs. When the injunction was realized, he even made further pronouncements that they would continue to lose their jobs. But the injunction facilitated a process of meeting and treating, and this led to a signed agreement, which is registered at the Industrial Court, that facilitated an enhanced financial settlement, lands for agricultural and residential purposes, retraining, and so on. That was water under the bridge now. The then Patrick Manning administration, because the government was dragging its feet on doing the infrastructural development or works on the land for residential and agricultural purposes, and the union worked with then, I can remember, attorney at law, senior counsel Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, and Justice went to the court, and Justice Dayal Singh ruled that the government should have completed or begin to work on the lands from an infrastructural point of view. And this famous judgment of Justice Dayal Singh was appealed by the Patrick Manning administration all the way to the Privy Council through the work of then Attorney General John Jeremy. When the Sessa administration came into power, she instructed then Attorney General to withdraw the matter at the level of the Privy Council, and this facilitated the beginning of infrastructural work on lands for residential and agricultural purposes. When we demitted office, approximately, I can recollect, about 5,000 agricultural 2-acre plots were distributed, and approximately 3,000 residential lots. And this was a campaign issue for the PNM under Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. And today, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Agriculture must answer why the land distribution process has not continued, because my information is that sites were developed, contractors have not been paid, and as a result of that, the contractors have not handed over the sites to the state to facilitate the continued distribution of these lands.
Yeah, and if I may have been remiss in saying that you were the head of the union at some point in there during that time, right?
Yes, I was the head of the union when the injunction was sought, when the memorandum of agreement was signed and registered at the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago, and when I demitted office from the union until May of 2010.
Right. If I'm not mistaken, you sometimes go through from Port of Spain to where I come from, and I pass different routes. And sometimes I go through, when I found a route through the place called in a bit woodland. There was some work going on there to prepare lands for distribution to people.
Yes, and this is why when the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Marine Resources, Clarence Rambarat, stated that he would have to seek information and clarification from the Estate Business Management Development Company. If my memory serves me right, or I do not know if the ministerial portfolios have been shifted, but this state entity still resides under the Minister of Agriculture, and he should be very forthcoming and upright with the ex-Caroni citizens and workers, and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to have the information at his fingertips to indicate why the process has been stopped by the government. Is it that the government is no longer paying or does not have the money? Are they bankrupt that they cannot facilitate the payment of monies owed to the contractors so that the lands, the sites that were developed, because sites were developed with road, water, lighting facilities, and so on, and just follow through with the distribution of the land. So the ball is in the court of the Prime Minister. You know, the Prime Minister can stand in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago and indicate that he knows that there's a high demand for prostitution in the borough of Chaguanas. I'm sure that he is very familiar with the fact that ex-Caroni workers reside in the borough of Chaguanas. They reside within the Cuba Tabacate Talparo Regional Corporation, the Pinal de Bay Corporation, the Siparia the Regional Corporation. And one of the issues that are affecting people in this context is the government's denial or failure to follow through with its land distribution process.
Yeah, and the company you were referring to was it used to be called by its acronym, the EMBD, and there was an issue with, I think, the man who was in charge of that, a man called Utharo Rao, and there was a big issue around him and that, and some aspects of that, correct?
Yes, there are. Well, the EMBDC, which is the state entity that was facilitating the land distribution process. You are quite right in terms of the infrastructural work. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that this agreement was signed between the union and Caroni 1975 Limited as the state entity. So this is where we must not get into semantics and so on. And this is why I am saying that the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, and his Minister of Agriculture, who has the line responsibility, should come out and tell the country why the distribution of the lands have stopped. Is it that the government no longer is allocating monies to relinquish the debt owed to contractors so that they can release the sites that were developed and do the paperwork from the point of view of preparing the relevant deeds and so on, whether it's from a residential or an agricultural point of view, and continue with the process? That is the question that has to be answered. How many deeds have been distributed by this PNM administration? They are into their second term, so we are approximately they're on the verge of being 7 years in political power. And how many deeds have been distributed from an agricultural and residential point of view? It reminds me of when Prime Minister Patrick Manning was in political power. They distributed 0 agricultural leases, 0 and 0 residential leases. That is why the union at that point in time was forced to work with then Senior Counsel Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj to take the government to court to get the infrastructural works done and to show the government's policy, the overriding policy at the time. They took a policy position of appealing the judgment of Lennox D. Elsing. And we must understand the history of this particular issue. A number of people may want to make their commentary and so on, but you have to understand the historical journey of this issue.
Yeah, what do you see coming out of that protest, that sort of awareness, reawakening on it? Well, I was talking with a Mr. Steve Ramksoon, but he said that, yesterday, but he said that because of the island-wide outage yesterday, he didn't get a chance to sort of conference with other people with whom he wanted to speak before he spoke with us. And we will have a chat with him subsequently. But what do you know to be sort of the next move in advancing this issue?
Well, that is something that politically, from time to time, we have continued to ask questions, and when I say that is the UNC in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, but the Old Trinidad Union continues to exist as the recognized majority union at the time that this particular agreement was signed. So I do not know if Mr. Ramkissoon would have been working with the union representatives or will continue to work with the union representatives in articulating the concerns of the ex-Caroni workers.
Yeah. I want to see if we could just switch gears here a bit and talk about this island-wide shutdown yesterday, electricity, well, all across Trinidad and San Tobago was not similarly circumstanced. But what do you hear as to exactly what happened there?
Well, I mean, this calls for a full-scale investigation in terms of what transpired in relation to the operations of the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission, and also, well, it impacted upon the entire country, whether in whatever form or fashion, whether you were a student, ordinary citizen, a pensioner, public servant, you name it. Yesterday, the entire country was impacted upon from the point of view of productivity, from cash, financial transactions, and so on, and transactions which were being conducted by citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, whether it is within the public or private sector. I saw, for example, long lines existing outside of gas stations and so on up to last night. And I would also want to know how this particular power outage would have impacted upon the health sector of Trinidad and Tobago, especially in our public hospitals throughout the length and breadth of the country. The Prime Minister, first and foremost, needs to address the country on this. Whilst an apology is good from the Minister of Public Utilities and so on, this impacted upon not just TNTEC or WASA in terms of when WASA pumps and so on went down. For example, my entire constituency was impacted upon with our water supply. But this was Trinidad and Tobago, so the Prime Minister needs to address the country and launch an immediate investigation and bring the issues to the fore. But at the end of the day, too, I want to know, and the Minister of Health should tell us, how does this power outage impact upon the well-being of the public health system? For example, did the backup generators at the Mount Hope Hospital and the Port of Spain and San Fernando and so on kick in, and whether surgeries were disrupted, whether dialysis was disrupted? Did we have an effective functioning of the backup units at the ICU units within the, for example, the pediatric ICU unit at the Wendy Fitzwilliam Hospital at Mount Hope? Did the mortuary facilities and so on, the existing morgue, did it in any way impacted? And God forbid, I would hate to think that anyone at our public health system and so on would have died because of backup generators and so on not kicking in at the public health system of the country. And coming back now to the TNTEC and the national grid and what transpired, I have been liaising with former engineers at PowerGen and so on, and they have indicated to me, and I stand to be corrected, I am not an expert in the field of public utilities and electrical supplies and so on, But at the end of the day, they have indicated to me that there should have been backup generators and I think turbines and so on to ensure that if this particular scenario occurred, that the process would not have led to a total collapse in terms of supply to the citizens of this country and also to the business community of this country. So this warrants a full-scale investigation, and as I said, that the Prime Minister must speak on this particular issue. Sending his line minister is really not doing justice for the people of the country.
Well, I can tell you that we're making some attempts to get in touch with at least the line minister. But one of the points is I don't know, when last I checked, you didn't get a sort of, not necessarily comprehensive, but any statement from TNTech acknowledging, well, this is what happened and this is why we have this situation. They just said that there was this outage, the breakdown in the system somewhere, but no proper kind of understanding as to what led to it.
Well, and that is why I said, and I know probably yesterday, we want to be fair to all and sundry, that the officials were working feverishly in terms of trying to restore a power supply to the country. And also it would have impacted upon WASA's ability to supply water to large parts of the country. And that is why I am saying that that there needs to be a full investigation, and probably within the next 24 hours, to allow this to go beyond 24 hours and not to hear from the Prime Minister will tell me, or I will be forced to conclude that there is some cover-up on the part of the government. If they fail to provide or communicate in a very effective manner, that this reeks of incompetence, and the responsibility will fall squarely on the Prime Minister and his government, because it is, whilst it is good to say that yes, it happened at TNTech and so on, from a ministerial point of view, from a government point of view, it is the government's responsibility to continue to ensure that entities such as TNTech and WASA and so on is functioning in such a manner, whilst you will not want to say that at the level of the Prime Minister or the level of the line minister and the cabinet, that micromanagement is occurring. But I am sure that as the head of the country, from the political point of view, that the Prime Minister will always want to be liaising through his line minister to ensure that such scenarios do not occur at TNTech or at WASA and so on, and to keep liaising, to keep ensuring, to keep, as we would say, having a continued assessment of what is happening. Because also, I asked the question, and I stand to be corrected, Andy, at our nation's traffic lights, or major intersections and so on, where you still have traffic lights existing. I could remember, I think that there is backup generators and so on. There are backup generators existing, and I do not know what is the status of these generators to facilitate the continuing functioning of traffic lights. And also, did we really see the police service coming into full gear yesterday to ensure that there was some semblance of effective traffic management to facilitate the traffic flow that was existing or emanating out of workplaces as a result of as a result of the chaos that ensued with the power outage.
All right. Thank you very much for talking with us on these issues, Mr. Rudranath Narsingh, the Member of Parliament for Couva South, former head of the All Trinidad Sugar and General Workers Union. On that issue, we started this discussion with about the delay in the distribution of lands promised to ex-workers of Caroni 1975 Limited. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. Have a great day.
All right, you too. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we give you some sense of the numbers and the COVID situation generally, and the Newsday poll and the responses to that. So stay with us.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw,
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers.
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
Only on WESN.
the content capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Well, welcome back to the program. We want to share with you now what the numbers say today, February 17, 2022. it would have been figures compiled to represent what the situation was at the end of yesterday with COVID-19, the new positive cases, the totally recovered patients, the total active cases as we stand, number of deaths and people in hospital. So that's the first tranche of the numbers there. 21,132, the total positive active cases as we speak. The death toll is 3,544. 412, the number of persons who tested positive with the virus in the last 24 hours, and 395, that's the number of patients in hospital as we speak. And I think it's good news. Well, I think it's certainly good news that that number keeps dropping down and dropping down over the last couple of weeks. We've been watching it here, tracking it there, and that means there's less pressure, probably not to the point where it's going to be easy, and it just could be described as being easy, but it's certainly easier on the services and on the people who provide those services in the hospitals across the country in what has been called the parallel health system. 395. It was up there at 500 and almost pushing there a couple of weeks ago. So that's good news in and of itself. That's what the numbers are saying this morning as we talk about COVID-19. Let's tell you what the Newsday poll is. The question is, should the government be allowed to recruit permanent secretaries from outside of the public service? If you think so, why? If you don't, why not? And here are some responses. Well, yes, yes, yes. Some PSs really ruin the staff morale of the institution, as well as put the staff at risk unnecessarily. They act with no consideration for the staff whatsoever. Well, it sounds like somebody who knows what they're talking about, who's had experience with that. It doesn't sound as though this is second-hand information. That's interesting. Another response, AM, drinking water and minding my business. No comment. Of course, that is a quote from this year's contribution, Soka Stuff, by Patrice Roberts, drink water and mind your business. And she's suggesting a particular color of water as well. We don't want to do that because that's promoting the people, but the other response here, I agree with the Prime Minister because seeing the corruptions, well, this is their reading it, the corruptions which is presently taking place today through the different ministries, I wouldn't blame the ministers. It's the people in charge of the different ministries. I wouldn't name them, but they should themselves, I suppose what they're saying, that they should know themselves, and God bless. Well, talking about that, we hope to be talking we were going to be talking with someone who is very well placed to discuss the issue with us. Of course, he's the former head of the public service. Before that, he held some of the most prestigious posts as an ambassador for this country in some of the most prestigious capitals in the world. The Venerable Reginald Dumas. That is after the news at 7. But that's the position, at least from these questions here this morning, the responses to this question. If you agree with it, why? And if you don't, why not? We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
I'm joined on set today with Dr. Chelsea Garcia. She's a palliative specialist as well as internal medicine doctor as well as hospice care.
Palliative is for anyone with serious illness, whereas hospice is for someone that may die in the next 6 months. Now, unfortunately, because people confuse the word palliative with hospice, we see a lot of patients presenting late in the course of their illness.
So the first part about holding out the stick is knowing how to hold it. You're only allowed to play with the flat side of the stick. So the ball is not allowed to hit the back of your stick whatsoever.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back. Our discussion now is with a man called Dave, and the other part of the name is PAE3OT, and that is pronounced as Patriot Maiku. And he's the extempo champ in the United Kingdom, and he's here to participate in what are we making of Carnival 2022, as we call it, the Taste of Carnival. Good morning, sir.
Pleasant good morning to you and all the viewers.
Well, thanks for coming on. Go ahead.
Before we go further, I heard you say the extempo champ in the UK. I'm not the extempo champ in the UK. I come to Trinidad and do extempo, but the UK don't really have no extempo tournament competitions as yet.
So, what does it says about the UK here then? You live
I'm
there?
based in the UK at the moment. I'm based in the UK.
Okay.
I'm based in London.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about this Carnival. Let's start to talk about what your sense is about Carnival 2022. Well, the Taste of Carnival, as we're calling it, is not what we used to. There was one time in my lifetime when Carnival was postponed from February to May. But this is a different kind of situation, in which it is. Well, I was going to use the term watered down, but that's probably too negative. You know, it's been circumscribed significantly by the fact of COVID-19 and so on. I mean, you're seeing some of the realities of it. Shows have to be postponed. Shows were brought down to more than manageable proportions and all of that. What's your sense?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm a person on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Right? And how I'm seeing it is that this is a forced carnival. It's something they're forcing. I would have rather it being nothing happening and they just wait till everything open back up and do something proper. Right? Because I can't see this as a money-making event, which Carnival is supposed to be. Because most of the people who come out and make their hustle around the Carnival and everything, they're still not going to be able to do it. Right? So I don't really see the purpose of it. You can have the as I've been following the news and I've seen the argument with TUCO and NCC and stuff going on now, it's because it's not 100% something that really should be going on. So I could only say what I think, you know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly.
But I believe it's something that's being forced and rushed. We shouldn't have been having nothing this year.
Yeah, well, that was a consideration for a lot of people, and a lot of people thought that if we were going to have something, we should have known well in advance of when we knew, and that presents some problems for some people, so that you see shows are being cancelled, the Calypso Monarch show is called off, other things are being, go ahead.
But this is not a carnival. It's not a carnival, so I don't know what they're trying to put onto people. Last year had no Notting Hill. This year they're going to have a Notting Hill, and they're talking about it's going to be a great one. So, for example, they have a Soca Monarch. I mean, it's UK Soca Monarch out here in June, which is run by a guy called Coco P from Trinidad, Gasparillo also. So the UK is open back up for their carnival, and they was patient. So I don't know why Trinidad think that they have to force this. I don't know why. It's not a carnival, so I can't even say it's a carnival.
So what do you call it then?
I think it's just people fulfilling their egos.
That's how you see it?
That's why I see it. It's not a carnival. It's not a carnival. Masqueraders not out there, all these pan men who... Yeah, all right, so normally you go in the pan yard and practice whole year. No, you can't even have a full pan side. So it's not a carnival. It's not a carnival. And it's just something they're forcing onto us. And I don't know why, but as I say, I can only say what I think. I normally come Trinidad every year for carnival. I come and do the first season. I sing in the tent. I work with the Angatang. I do my shows, everything. I enter the Extempo. I spoke to Kerr from TUCO recently, and he was like, you're not coming for the Extempo. And I was like, I'll miss this one. And that was in early January. So it's a good thing I told him I'll miss this one because it's looking like it wouldn't have any.
That is Calypso Kerr.
Yeah, from TUCO, yeah.
That's your associate. He's your associate.
No, I'm a member of TUCO also.
Yeah.
So I always keep in contact still with everything that's going on home. As I say, I'm come home every year for carnival. I do soca, release my calypsos every year.
Right, and so you know that the Calypso Monarch competition has been sort of sidelined and,
yeah, well, although I'm here,
sky.
I'm onto the news of Trinidad and Tobago Raichu. So the last thing I heard was Gypsy saying that NCC will carry it on if TUCO don't want to carry it on. So I'm just watching, but it's not a carnival, so you will have problems.
Because in your view, a carnival should have people on the streets jumping and seal bands.
That's what carnival, not just that, that's what carnival is. The people, the hustlers, the people who get to come out on the road, sell their food, make money, all these people get involved. And that's what carnival is about. It's not just, it's about bringing money into the country also. So when you put out all these millions, you're supposed to make back a profit. I don't know if they're going to make back a profit in this.
You don't think, but you think you don't know, that is an understatement. You think that there would be no profit?
No profit. I can't see a profit. How many foreigners coming in?
And that's a big factor. That we're not going to get visitors here in any numbers that qualify as respectable. That's
and
your
then
view.
It's linked to vaccinated only. I don't even want to get into the vaccinated because as soon as you say something, everyone say anti-vax and all kind of stuff, right? But I'm in the UK here. Everything is open back up. We're moving normal, no masks. You're going anywhere you want, and everything's normal.
Vaccinated or not?
Vaccinated or not, everything is normal.
So there's no separation of the vaccinated and the unvaccinated?
No, everything is normal right now. Everything is normal. You go on the trains, it have no problem. You could even you could fly to Portugal, you could fly to Greece unvaccinated.
And
you could go to all these countries right now unvaccinated.
And wearing masks or not, it doesn't matter. So it's normal, life is normal?
It's normal, UK is normal. It's normal. I've been for the last month since Boris come and scrap lots of stuff. Everything's normal.
And people have
everything, and even during COVID, people were moving no mask. It never had a mandatory mask out here. Never.
It's difficult to conceive of that in other countries where we have to have that if you're stepping out and so on. So life is back to normal as usual. So it doesn't matter who has COVID and who doesn't. So there's no separation of.
No, I actually had COVID. I got the COVID because schools has been open here all the time, right? School's been open right through the COVID, and my little son, unfortunately, he got the COVID in school and brought it home. So I had the COVID. I recovered everything. It wasn't a great experience, but I recovered, so I have my antibodies now, which I believe is better than anything else.
So you mean it's good to get the virus, so you get antibodies? That's what you're saying?
It's not. I wouldn't recommend it good to get it, because it's not an easy thing. But once you get it and you recover, you have the antibodies, which they say is better than the vaccine.
So, well, that suggests that the odds are that if you get the virus and you survive it, then you don't need to take any vaccines and so on. So some people will say, well, it might be better
I was
to get
never a person into the vaccine, because I was seeing all that was going on out here, and lots of people who had the vaccine still getting COVID and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'll ride it out, because I normally ride out any cold I get, and I'm going to take a chance and ride it out.
Yeah.
Because it was never a solution for the problem. If I know that I was getting a shot and everything was okay, I would have gladly taken it.
But you don't think that 99 to 1 it's okay? It's you don't buy that if you take the vaccine, you have a better than even chance of not getting the virus, and if you get it, you have a better than even chance of surviving it. And that the people who survive it not having taken the vaccine, that's rare.
Sorry for cutting, but I don't believe that, because I know people who took the vaccine and died from COVID.
Yeah, well, how many as opposed to who took it and didn't get the vaccine and so on? What's the?
Yeah, and I know what I'm saying. And I know people who didn't take it and also died, right? But I know people who didn't take it and recovered, like myself.
Yeah.
And I had no chance of my next problem was going and take the vaccine, and then it didn't. I had a reaction to it.
Okay, so you
right?
Yeah.
And it's me like putting myself into that position.
All right.
I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not gonna, because nobody's standing responsibility.
I hear what you're saying. All right, so you are on that side of the argument, and that's fair enough.
Yeah, but I tell people, if you want to take it, take it. I have no problem with that, but I'm not gonna take it. I had it. I got through with it. I know what it was, and it's a cold. You just need to take care of yourself and treat yourself. From the time you have it early, treat it. If you wait till it's too late and say you don't have it, and you wait till you're bedridden and you can't help yourself, it's going to take you.
Yeah. All right, so let's come back on the main issue. Why are we talking here about Carnival?
Yeah, because this will go on all day, yeah.
Carnival 2022. So we should have had nothing. We should have just waited out this year again and see what happens next year. That's your point. So
Yeah. Because it looks like they're trying to prove a point to Miami. That's all I'm seeing. Like, everything is Miami. Like, they're trying to prove a point to Miami.
All right. So you're looking forward to probably coming home next year?
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to Notting Hill Carnival first. Yeah, coming up.
And that will happen. I mean, there was one man walking the street in a costume that I saw last year in London, right, in Notting Hill, right? So
last year didn't have nothing, because it was the peak of everything and they couldn't have chanced it.
Yeah, all right.
But this year is going to definitely have it this year, and I'm looking forward for that. I know it have the other, and like it have Manchester Carnival, Liverpool, so it's going to be nice.
All right, my friend Dave Patriot Maiku. So you know the lady named Suzanne Maiku? She's not related.
No,
she wasn't related.
I'm related to Daniel Brown.
Yeah. Okay.
You know Daniel Brown?
Well, the Calypsonian, and he and his brother, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, good talking to you, my friend.
All right, man. All right, thanks. You all have a blessed day and keep safe.
All right, you take it easy.
All right, man. Okay, thank you.
So swiftly now, let's move around the region a bit. We go to Jamaica for the latest update with the Minister of Agriculture talking about what is happening in the poultry industry. Let's take a look.
Agriculture and Fisheries Minister Pernell Charles Jr. says the poultry industry is being targeted as a priority area in achieving the goal of self-sufficiency in food production. The minister was speaking during a meeting with small poultry farmers held at the Rural Agricultural Development Authority's Clarendon Parish office and online on Friday to discuss challenges in the industry. He noted that while the poultry industry has faced supply chain challenges due to the coronavirus pandemic, it has continued to do well.
We see that the poultry industry has been growing, and it has resulted in a peaking of production in 2019 at 133.5 million kilograms. The next year, that declined to 122.8 million kilograms. And then we saw in 2021, when we have now a movement upwards to 124.2 million kilograms.
The session facilitated open discussion with the minister and technical officers to raise and address various concerns. These include unavailability of quality baby chicks, increased prices for feed, water supply, and predial larceny. Poultry farmers from the parishes of St. Catherine, St. Mary, Manchester, Westmoreland, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, St. Anne, Hanover, and St. James participated in the session. Renewed efforts to get more young people interested in working in agriculture. The initiative is being led by the Jamaica 4-H clubs, which says it will be expanding the reach of the Rural Youth Economic Empowerment Program, RYEEP. Executive Director of the 4-H clubs, Dr. Ronald Blake, says his agency also plans, among other things, to increase the distribution of government-owned lands to young farmers and to provide them with agro-processing support. Under the program, youth participants will benefit from advanced training in business development and management, agriculture best practices for targeted production areas, and training in basic computing. They will also receive startup grants and up to 6 months of business coaching.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to the program. Let me start by issuing this quote in the Newsday, one of the Newsday publications today. If I tell you that is my view, that permanent secretaries should not only come from those who come up and float up to the top in the public service, but should also come from managers in the private sector who are hired into the public service to bring management skills to the public service. If I tell you that is my view, wait and hear what I'm accused of. That is a quote taken from a statement issued a couple of days ago by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Keith Rowley, in saying that, again, he has been pushing for the introduction of people from the private sector into the senior ranks in the public service. He said that public servants get up, they float up to the top by the means of seniority and longevity of service, and they become permanent secretaries. He say they don't have the managerial skill, they don't have the ability to lead an organization such as a ministry, and he wants to go back to that. He tried it sometime, or he at least discussed it sometime in the past, and of course there's been a lot of pushback on it. But our guest now is somebody who says that he's been advocating something along those lines for some time now. He retired as the head of the public service and permanent secretary to the Prime Minister. He's headed some of the more prestigious positions as a diplomat representing the country in parts of Africa, in Canada, in the United States. The eminent Mr. Reginald P. Dumas. Good morning.
Morning, Andy. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Well, let's start. Let me just tell you that we hope to be talking at more length with you this morning, but because of the situation yesterday with the shutdown of electricity across the country, the Minister of Public Utilities has agreed to give us an update on that this morning. So we will not, we want to give him a chance to do that. So we'll talk a little bit about this issue. You say but when we spoke to you, this is something you've been advocating, you've advocated about it, you've written about it in the past, and you're going to write about it now that the Prime Minister has brought it back to the front burner. What commends itself, in your view, to that position?
Well, I, as you have just said, used to be head of the public service, permanent secretary to the Prime Minister, and therefore was in a position to see how permanent secretaries operated, and they were very good permanent secretaries, of course. But there were a number and who were, quite frankly, not up to scratch. And when you looked at the layer below and say,
Yes.
I got a little concerned. And it's a proposal I made. In fact, I was looking at an address I gave in June 2009. That is very nearly 13 years ago now. To the Tobago branch of the Public Services Association, in which I said that I felt that permanent secretaries should be sought both inside and outside public service. And I was speaking to public servants who I didn't expect to agree with me, of course, but then I don't spend my life trying to get people to agree with me on everything. I say things that I think are right and hope that they agree, of course, but if they don't, well, we can talk about it. But you know, with all the hullabaloo and people saying, oh, you're going to bring all these people in from outside and etc., and what is going to happen to the public service, etc. Yes, there are or could be difficulties, but bear in mind that even at this moment, and it's been going on for some years now, you have the level of deputy permanent secretary, and there are people who apply who come from the private sector, and some of them have been selected into the public service. So you already have people from the private sector at the high levels of the public service, and who, of course, are looking forward to becoming permanent secretaries themselves.
Yeah.
So that there's nothing really too frightening about all of this. One has to examine very clearly, very closely what one is doing. One has to see that the people are fit for purpose, and not assume, as the Prime Minister appears to have assumed, that because you come from the private sector, therefore you have management skills.
Right.
I mean, I've met too many incompetents in the private sector for me to make a statement like that. And there's another factor that, again, I have raised on more than one occasion. In fact, I first raised it, if you please, with George Chambers when he was Prime Minister in 1985. That's nearly 40 years ago now.
Yes.
And I have raised it with every single administration since, including the current one. And nothing has happened, which is this. There is nothing in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago to say or to suggest that a permanent secretary should be a manager. If you look at Section 85, subsection 1 of the Constitution, what you will see is that a minister has general direction and control of whatever department he's supposed to be in charge of. And below him there will be a permanent secretary who shall be responsible for the supervision of that department. Now, in my book, a supervisor is not a manager. The word management nowhere appears in the Constitution.
So in a sense, that is at the crux of the issue. That
exactly.
Yeah.
So what we have is a situation in which, believe it or not, permanent secretaries are constitutionally empowered not to manage. Now, that is madness. So, to accuse them of not having management skills,
of not managing,
is all very well, but what happens then to the Constitution? And what I have proposed, and I proposed it first to Chambers, as I said, nearly 40 years ago, and I've had absolutely no success since, is that you change the word of constitutional change, which can be done by a simple majority. You change the word supervision to the word management. And you have the appropriate measures and structures in place. And you hold the permanent secretary accountable to that he's a manager, he or she is a manager, not a supervisor. And nothing has happened.
Because on the converse, don't senior public servants, whether permanent secretaries, and a lot of times permanent secretaries are people who retire as AO5 and the rest of it, go into the private sector and get big jobs.
Exactly. I mean, I moved from when I retired early, because when I looked at what pension I was going to get, I said, I can't live on this. Might be able to buy a loaf of bread every so often, but that's about it. And by the way, if I may say so, the pension that I receive is exactly the same as to what I receive today. It's exactly what I used to get 20 years ago. Not a change. You hear about cost of living index and all this kind of thing.
Yes.
Forget it. It's exactly the same amount of money. I am ashamed to say how much it is. Having retired as permanent secretary to the Prime Minister and head of the Public Service.
Yes.
But leave that aside. It applies not only to me but to others as well. So people leave the public service, go into the private sector, do well. Lots of people leave. Especially when you had many years ago, I don't know if you recall, you had this VSEP and VTEP, the voluntary separation of employment, voluntary termination of employment thing.
VSEP,
There were a number of public servants who left and got very good jobs because of their perceived abilities in the private sector. So I am not alarmed by this as a matter of this question of having people from the private sector. What you have to do is look at these people very carefully and not assume that because they come from the private sector they have management skills. That would be a very wrong assumption. And see how they fit in. There have been difficulties. I know that people talk about the politicization of the public service, which is what I expected to hear from the PSA. But this politicization, quote unquote, of the public service has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
It didn't start today. It didn't start yesterday.
Right. Well, one of the things that Mr. Batiste says here, and I'm quoting from this edition of the Tobago Newsday, he's talking about the fact that there have been these attempts. In fact, in a lot of cases, public service agencies and organizations have been transformed into these authorities, such as the Housing Development Authority, and you have others like that, the regional health authorities, and so stuff was broken off from the public service and the public sector, and created these agencies where people get hired on contract, and that was a way to treat to the fact of whatever the frustrations were with operating in the public service, and he says you have that, but that the delivery of goods and services, in his words, are not measurably better than, or is not measurably better than when these things came centrally from the public service.
I think he's probably right. These things were started, and if you recall, Manning also started something called the Special Purpose State Enterprises. You remember that?
Yes, special purpose vehicles.
Which seemed to work worse than what was in the public service. But bear in mind again, what you have there is an attempt by politicians to control, because they feel that they couldn't order about the public servants in the way that they wished. You set something up and then you fill that with political appointees. You put reliable members of your party as chairman and members of the board and this kind of thing, as CEO, etc., and say that you are getting the work done and you're getting it done faster and more cheaply. That has proven to be largely incorrect. So what we need, really, is a complete revamping of the entire structure in Trinidad and Tobago. It's not enough to talk about reforming the public service. You have to look at the political input into the public service and see the damage, I regret to say, that politicians over the decades have done to the public service. Let's just take Williams. He made a speech in 1975, and that is nearly 50 years ago.
The Middlestone speech?
No, not the Millstones.
Okay.
Millstones, he was talking about, that was 1976.
That's politicians themselves.
And he was talking then about his own people in the PNM.
Yeah.
But I am talking about 75, when he was addressing a PNM convention. And suddenly, at the PNM convention, he suddenly talks about a small group of ambitious senior civil servants who wanted to impose a technocracy on the country and only wanted someone to chair their meetings to give respectability. And he didn't mention any names, but it was quickly apparent after the speech to whom he was referring. He was referring to his own permanent secretary, Dr. Jalin, who was head of the public service. He was referring to Eugenio Moore, who was the economic advisor. He was referring to Frank Rampersad, who was the permanent secretary in finance, brilliant man. He was referring to Harold Fraser, who was a very senior official in the Ministry of Finance, etc., etc. And all these people were put out to pasture, just like that, boom. The impact on the public service was immediate. If people at that level, with that seniority, with that perceived authority in the public service, were going to be treated like that, what did you leave for the ones below? So a lot of people just pulled in their horns. So when you talk about public service reform, you have to include the politicians. It has to be political reform in reference to and with regard to the public service. You can't just say the public servants are doing this, that, and the other without looking at the impact and the pressures on the public service of political behavior.
Yeah. But what would you say is that when you say it was sort of a kind of a divine intervention that all these people came back and were rehabilitated in the minds of some and held even bigger positions in subsequent administrations, Dr. Jalin?
Well, subsequent administration, but that was because of political. Dr. Jalin, for instance, was made an ambassador, was made our man to the United Nations, but in the NAR regime.
Yes.
Eugenio Moore became himself permanent secretary to the Prime
Was
Minister
Robinson's
in the
right
NAR
hand
regime.
for a good bit.
But you see, you can look at this and see this from a political perspective.
Yeah.
Because they had been maltreated by one political administration,
Yes.
we, the new administration, we treat them differently.
I often wondered that, yes.
Which is not reform. That is just sort of getting back at another thing that people complain about and are concerned about, and rightly, is the number of contract officers in the public service, which started in earnest when the NAR came in. That was to a large extent because the NAR came in with great suspicion of what had gone before, that is the PNM, which had been in office since 1956, and 30 years, and the NAR was there in 1986, and the feeling and the conviction, indeed, that all or nearly all public servants were PNMites.
And couldn't be trusted.
Which was not true.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, a number of the public servants, I suspect the bulk of the public servants, had voted for the NAR in the 1986 election, but leave that aside. And so a number of these contract people were brought in. Now, there's nothing wrong with bringing someone in on contract. And if you have a head of the public service, for instance, or a permanent secretary who might be brought in on contract, it might be the same thing as, parallel to what you have with a contract officer. But they were brought in on contract, and that's fine. But it's a question now of the relations between them and the public servants who are there already. And here is where a breakdown began, in the sense that the contract officers who were brought in, a number of them, were strutting about the place, saying, "We're in charge now. And you public servants are just PNMites and you've been wasting time, you don't do any work," and so on. I recall, just to give you an example of what I mean, I recall one contract officer in a particular department meeting with the staff, the public service staff of that particular department, and telling the staff, and I'm quoting, "We have come to clean out the stables."
Yes.
Now, if you were told that as a public servant, how are you going to react?
Yeah, and somebody used the term the Augean stables or something like that.
Well, I don't know if he used the word Augean, but he certainly said the stables.
Yes.
He may not have used Augean because out the stables. Now, if you come to clean out the stables, that means, you know, you've all the rotten, the stench and the smell, etc., etc. You've come to clean out all of that because all of you represent that. Do you expect people to work comfortably with you after you say something like that?
Yeah.
Obviously not.
Yeah.
So, relations quickly deteriorated. There's another factor involving these contract officers, or is another factor, and this came much later. It is that one of the international agencies in Washington told Patrick Manning, the Patrick Manning administration, which was there then, that it should, to the extent possible, hire people on contract because it would be cheaper. You know, you might pay the contract officer more than the public servant, but you wouldn't then, when the person was ended, when the contract was ended, you didn't have to pay the person a pension, you pay the person a gratuity. Whereas with the public servants, you had to pay pensions in perpetuity, at least until the person died. And that would cost the Treasury far more than merely paying the person a gratuity at the end of his or her contract. That was eagerly snapped up by the Manning administration at the time. And so the number of contract officers, in fact, increased. What the relations between them, between contract officers and public servants might be at the moment, I don't know, but I suspect there would still be difficulties in the sense that, and advisors, that's another one, who will also be on contract, because the advisor is a political appointee, advisor to the minister. And many advisors, in my experience over time, have simply sought to interpose themselves between the minister and the permanent secretary.
Yes.
And give the impression that these public servants not doing any work, but we can rely on me, etc., 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 which leads to further problems. So what I'm saying quite simply, Andy, is that when you're talking about reform, you can't talk merely about public service reform in a vacuum and say, well, look at the structures, look at various posts, etc., etc. You have to look at the totality of the administrative and public service operations of the state, which would include a lot of these authorities that you mentioned.
And in fact, you'd been there, right? Yourself and the late Gordon Draper had been...
Sorry?
You'd been there on this question of public service reform or public service review.
Yes, well, I was chairman of a public service review task force that was set up by Chambers.
Yes.
And then later on, chairman of public service reform task force. Now, when that was under Robinson, and we looked at things very differently from the way I looked at it when I was chairman of the review task force, in a broader capacity, because then I suppose I had far more experience of life and how to operate. And we were making excellent progress. Now, I then went on retirement leave, on pre-retirement leave, because I said I left early. And I offered to stay on because we were at least 1 year ahead of our targets in terms of the reform process and reform exercise. I offered to stay on to complete the exercise. And I was told no.
Yes.
That was that.
Well, there's much more we could talk about it because Mr. Batiste is making some valid points here about what it will lead to, what it might lead to, and the experience we've had with sort of the hybridization of the situation. But the matter is going to. The question though is, if you were to be asked on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put the realization of these ambitions, or the headache? One headline called it, of the Prime Minister's headache at this point. Where do you put that at let's say the end of this term? Where do you think we'll be making any advance on it? What he's suggesting?
Well, based on my experience, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would put it at 1.
All right.
You know, I mean,
all right.
The thing needs to be done. It should have been done a long time ago. Merely making statements is not enough. And merely making statements which suggest confined to a particular thing and not looking at the broader picture, is not going to help.
Right. The
So
question is
if you're going to have reform, it has to be on a much broader basis.
much more comprehensive. It can't focus simply on public permanent secretaries and so on. All right.
Can't do that.
All right. We're gonna
Success.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We're going to leave it there for the moment.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Reginald Dumas, weighing in on that situation, and nobody more qualified and competent to address that, in our view, than he is. We're going to take you out with this. Watch this. We wrap things up with the program this morning, sharing some sentiments regarding TNTEC's emergency numbers, 800 numbers being non-operable during part of that exercise, that experience yesterday. We could also tell you that we were trying to get a discussion with the Minister of Public Utilities. He said he was going to be available. Not sure what transpired, but we will work on that. Maybe tomorrow we'll see what happens, his response to yesterday's experience. But watch this.
Good afternoon. I can confirm that at approximately 12:50 p.m. there was a major disturbance on the electricity system, which disrupted supply to our customers in Trinidad. The cause of the problem is unknown at this time, but our engineers as well as our independent power producers are working assiduously to restore the supply in the shortest possible time. What is happening right now is that the independent power producers are restarting all their generators. This is a process that takes some time, and it is going to lead to a gradual restoration of supply to all customers. The process to restart and to get the customers back on supply incrementally will take approximately 2 to 3 hours. Our 800 numbers, our hotline is currently affected. However, customers can contact us at 794-4823 or 794-7264. Our social media page, Facebook, is also being updated with information, and customers can check in there for further updates. Additional updates will be forwarded to the media as required. Thank you.
All right, so let's just quickly show you what's on the front pages of these newspapers. That's the front page of the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago, and that's the back page. This is the front page of the Tobago Newsday, and this is the back page. Some interesting stories in the Tobago Newsday. The leader of the Innovative Democratic Alliance, Dr. Soyafat Angus, she's saying something here we want to get into. She says the PNM in Tobago is now irrelevant. And the big headline on the front page, retire at 65. Well, that's a proposal being put forward to people in the public service. Again, we go on this discussion about that. And that has to do with what is being seen down the road with the retirement benefits for people between the pensions and the national insurance scheme that is operating. They're saying that those are going to be stressed out, and measures have to be taken to do what is necessary to be done with that. We'll continue our discussion about that one day next week with Dr. Jennifer Rouse on the question of more of us are getting into that bracket where we are retirees. What will happen to the provisions to suffice for people in there as opposed to the people who are working, and what will happen with these programs such as NIS and public and private pensions and the rest of it. But for now, that's our broadcast for this morning. We tell you can stay with us, stay in touch with us here on all our social media platforms, and you can send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com. News at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Messrs. Shah and Small. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.